Hello, genealogists. It's Craig, and it's Book Sunday at Just Genealogy. I had a request for a discussion about the books relating to newspapers in Loudon County, authored by Patricia Duncan. She is a prolific writer about Loudon County and some of the surrounding counties, having probably more books than I can count. So the opportunity to hone in specifically on the books that she's written about newspapers was a great idea, because otherwise there are just too many books to talk about. If there are other pieces of Duncan's work that you want me to talk about, just let me know and I'll work it in somehow. Newspapers I'm going to talk about today are not the only newspapers that have been published in the county. One of those books is out of print right now, and I'm just waiting for it to come back so that I can talk about those, and then Marty Hyatt's book on the Genius of Liberty, and I'll do that in another Book Sunday or at some other time. There were basically three newspapers that Duncan writes about in Loudon County. The first was the Democratic Times-Mirror, and it covered the period 1857 to 1879. So basically all that really happened was the name changed. And when I go into that book, in fact, all of these books, they deal a lot with marriages and deaths and births and those kind of things. You're able to trace a family basically through a half a century with her books. You like my new glasses? Anyway, I put in bookmarks in every place for articles that I wanted to talk about. And I just note these are new, and I just noticed that I've got this sticker on them. Sometimes, Craig Scott, you're an idiot. You know that? What I wanted to say, I have collaterals in Loudon. I'm from Loudon County. I moved there in 1969, joined the Navy, and kept going back. And I have Quaker collaterals there in my Scott family, although I can't prove that they're actually my family. That'll come someday or not. So I don't know what I was looking for on this page, but anyway, let me pick something out. Let me just go down half a page. Married on the 15th of October, 1872, to Elder Joseph Furr, or by rather, Elder Joseph Furr at the house of Charles F. Dowdell, Mr. John F. Lynn to Miss Louisa P. Dowdell, all of Loudon County. Married on the 5th of November at the bride's residence, Burkittsville, Maryland, by the Reverend W.C. Wire, Mr. Charles W. Fry, and Miss Kate M. Wire, both of Loudon County. The joy of this is that here we have, in this case, a marriage which did not occur in Loudon County, but in Burkittsville, Maryland, which is a good number of miles away and not the first place that you would have thought to go to locate a marriage. So you would have looked in the Loudon County marriages, of which you could look at the Register in the Library of Virginia. You could look at Duncan's books on, I think Hyatt is a co-author also, but that's off the top of my head, on marriages, and those are there. But you wouldn't come across this marriage of a Loudon County resident because it happened in Burkittsville. And Burkittsville, I think, not sure, it's either in it probably is in Prince George's County, so that's how far away it is from Loudon. It used to be a great Amish market in Burkittsville. I haven't been there in a while. Gonna go visit. In the newspaper, we're able to find this marriage in Burkittsville that we wouldn't think about looking for otherwise. So the first book covers genealogical abstracts from the Democratic Mirror and the Mirror, 1857 to 1879. The second book covers the Mirror, and it covers the period of 1880 to 1890. If we look at some of these, we see that I had it all set up so I know exactly what to look at, but I didn't want to write in the books, of course. Yeah, well, married at the bride's residence in Washington, D.C. on Thursday, October 10th, 1889, by the Reverend Green, Mrs. George Laycock of Hamilton, to Miss Ella G. Johnson of Washington. Interesting. It's probably Mr. George Laycock, not Mrs. Died in Leesburg, September 21st, and this is in the 17 October 1889 paper. Died in Leesburg, September 21st, Robert Henry, youngest child of Henrietta and Smith McGill, age 6 years, 13 days. So it's possible that here's a child that's 6 years, 13 days that's not found in the 1880 census. Of course, there is not an 1890 census, so you may not even know that this child existed unless you did a really deep dive. The unexpected death of Mr. C.B. Hess, dry goods merchant, occurred at his home in Leesburg Monday night. He leaves a wife and one child. He was about 33 years of age. Funeral took place on Wednesday morning. Reverend B.W. Bond, assisted by Reverend Dr. Nelson Head, officiating. Interment in Union Cemetery. Union Cemetery is the major cemetery in the county seat, which is Leesburg, which is where this guy lived. And it also is available from us. We have lots of books on Loudon because we have lots of Loudon authors, and I'm from Loudon. Then one more from here. October court wills of James M. Wallace, deceased, Jacob Scott, deceased, M.M. Rogers, deceased, William Kolb, and Susan Ann Verts, deceased, admitted to probate. Estate of Abel Warford, deceased, committed to the sheriff. And that book covers 1880 to 1890. Then we have one that covers 1891 to 1899. And to give you some idea what this one has, I'm actually looking for the Jacob Scotts or the Hannah Scotts or whatever, largely because they're my collaterals. So again, on the 17th of October, 1895, they talk about wills, and Hannah Scott has an administrator, Robert R. Walker, and the Walkers and the Scotts have intermarried, if you knew that family, out near Waterford, had a farm. Aldie, which is is outside of Leesburg. Marriage of Miss Fanny Ewell of Prince William to Mr. Edward Nelson of Montana is announced to take place today, the 15th, at Grace Chapel. Reverend E.S. Hinks to officiate. After ceremony, they will leave for their future home in the far west. So if you're in Montana looking for Miss Fanny Ewell, where did they get married? That's a long way to have to go to figure it out. The last book that deals with the mirror is 1900 to 1919. And E.D. Kinchlow, age 81, Confederate veteran who served under Ashby and Longstreet, and who represented his native Fauquier for several terms in the House of Delegates, died on Thursday, January 16th, from the infirmities of age. In 1875, he married Miss Emma Chapelier of Delaplane and resided in his estate Woodside, where for years he was engaged in farming. So not even a Loudon County entry, because it's in Fauquier. There's Mrs. Matilda Milholland, age 96, died on Monday, last at the home of Mr. M.F. Brown of near Great Falls from the effects of a fall received about 5 weeks ago. She's survived by one son, Mr. Mortimer Milholland, a printer of New York, interment in Leesburg on Tuesday. Lots of different pieces there. Then in Hamilton, not maybe 10, 12 miles from Leesburg, headed towards Waterford, there was published The Telephone. And we have two books from The Telephone. one from 1881 to 1888, and one from 1889 to 1896. And when I look at the telephone on page 1, we learn that Rebecca Scott, the wife of Jacob Scott, remember Jacob from previously, of Waterford, that's Fairfax Monthly Meeting Settlement, who died at her home on the 29th last month. She was a member of the Society of Friends. Her husband, who is enfeebled in health, is left in a lonely condition. So that's in the telephone. And that the date of that is 14 January 1881. When you go to the next volume of the telephone from 1889 to 1896, we see that Jacob Scott of Waterford died last Saturday morning at the home of Mr. George Schooley, where he had been living for some time. For years he was subject to epileptic fits. He was 85 years of age. The funeral took place on the Sabbath at Friends Meeting House. And do you remember Mr. George Laycock from 10 years back, maybe 15? Well, the entry following Jacob's death is Mr. George Laycock of the firm of Taverner and Laycock and Miss Ella G. Johnson were united in marriage at the home of the latter in Washington at 3:30 p.m. yesterday by the Reverend Mr. Green of that city. So I find newspapers to be very helpful to me. I also find that if they're published abstracts of newspapers, I can use those abstracts as a finding aid to get me to the original, if the original is even available. I can't remember the story behind these, but I think that these originals were in private hands. So they were not, I don't believe they're available as originals at the Thomas Balch Library. But I may be wrong. I haven't been to Balch in a long time. I have to go visit someday. So anyway, this is at the request of a subscriber to talk about the newspaper abstracts of Patricia Duncan relating to Loudon County, Virginia, the Mirror, the Telephone, 6 volumes of newspaper abstracts from 1857 to the early 1900s. So, of course, I don't have a choice in my own mind. I have to make these available to you at a discount since you spent the time listening to me talk about them. So if you were to type in capital letters Loud News, Loudnews, that is worth a 20% discount because today is Book Sunday. And one of the reasons that you all probably subscribe to this channel is because you not only get good information, I hope, but you also get book discounts. And the reason I do this, actually, just so you know, is because I need to sell books. And I need to convert people doing genealogy into genealogists day by day. And this is now the 81st day in a row of providing you with information in one way or another. I hope that if you haven't subscribed, you might. I hope that you remember to click that notification bell, even though they come out every day at noon. And I hope you will tell your friends. And they will tell their friends, and those will tell their friends, so that we can move it right along down the road. You all I hope you're having a pleasant Memorial Day weekend. And this is Craig signing off for another day.